to my dungeon.
Welcome to Cauldron's Crypt. I'm your host, Master Cauldron. If you're new to the show, we use our combined 30 years of experience to dispel myths, get rid of stereotypes, and answer your questions about BDSM. You can call in at 865-268-4005 to leave your questions or visit the crypt at cauldronscrypt.com. On this episode of The Crypt, we're going to explore ways to avoid burnout. But first, hello, Fun Size.
Hello, Master Cauldron.
How are you doing today?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm pumped up and ready to go. Let's just dive straight into it, hit these rules to love by, and I bet you're going to have a definition for me, aren't you?
I sure will.
All right. Rules to love by. Rule number 1, safe, sane, consensual, and informed. Rule number 2, kinky. That's KNKI. It comes from the Kinky app, available on all platforms. That stands for knowledge, no intolerance, kindness, and integrity. And rule number 3, the quote from Mr. Paul Young. Submission is not about authority, and it's not about obedience. It is all about relationships of love and respect. All right. So avoiding burnout. Go ahead and fire at will when it comes to definitions. I think this should be pretty self-explanatory, but for the sake of my own edification, let's have it.
Burnout is also known as dom fatigue or sub fatigue and is often thought of as an extended drop. Regardless of your relationship and position in the lifestyle, you can become burnt out, and you can actually experience this even without having a partner. It is simply the feeling that you've had too much of the lifestyle for a time and you cannot find the energy or zeal that you used to have regularly to continue. And it's not just a feeling of, oh, I'm tired after this scene. It's a deeper, more resounding, I want nothing to do with this in my life right now feeling. So for those who are really committed to the lifestyle or a particular relationship, the feeling can be absolutely devastating. I really always compare burnout in the lifestyle to that of the workplace. If you don't take a vacation for a long time, you can get burnt out, and the same applies here. And honestly, I myself have been experiencing and struggling with this lately. I've discussed it with Master Cauldron. So being able to share this topic is really important.
Yes, it is a very important topic because it's something that we all experience, and it's often one of those things that people want to, as much as they want to avoid burnout, they want to avoid admitting that they're experiencing burnout. I know some people that want to claim that, no, this is my life. This is how everything is. I love this. There is nothing about it that would cause me to need to take a break or want to take a break. And that's just being dishonest with yourself. Mm-hmm. You're experiencing it now. I was experiencing it a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And it can be things from outside, an external bit of drama, or just overplay or underplay, or things just simply within that you're feeling. But we're going to dive into all of that, of course. I guess the next place to go would be answering the question simply, how can the lifestyle make you jaded?
Well, you run into predators and fakes, for one thing. And one run-in can be very detrimental, but when you feel like it keeps happening and every new person you meet is either a fake or a predator, it really just kind of becomes this frustrating, spiraling feeling that makes you want to give up and feel like you've just had enough. If that's all there is, you just don't want to participate anymore.
You know, I love that that's the first place that we go, because as far as listener interactions, and I say this all the time, that's the reason why I do this, why you do this, is that interaction and helping others. But that, for me, and please give your input on this, that's the number one thing that I get from people who contact me, seems to be that, and they don't say it specifically, that they're jaded or that they're experiencing burnout, but in what they say, they're defining it in their own terms, that's what they're experiencing because of all the fakes or the predators. And one is, it's really sad that that's the number one reason that burnout seems to take place. But it does tell me that you and I are doing the right thing here, that we're on the right path with this. So what is your experience in the interaction with the cryptors? Would it be similar?
I get maybe 10% who come to me because they're experiencing problems like that. But 90% honestly just want advice from me on how to approach a certain relationship, how to communicate something. And then I get people that are experiencing frenzy and they want to know about experiences I've had because it can feed into their experiences vicariously. So mine's very varied in what the interactions are, but I absolutely cherish each one.
Yeah, I think frenzy would probably be number 2, and it would be tied with personal experience and advice. And I find it interesting too, and I think that may have to do with, I guess, how we see ourselves, our preferred stations, I guess, whereas you're a switch, so you have it from both sides, or as I called you in your interview back ages ago, over a year ago now, you're the greedy one. So you have that broader sense from both sides. And though I was, a switch 20 years ago or more, there's so much about it that I've honestly just forgotten because time, in this case, heals all wounds. And that was not really the place for me to be. So it was not a comfortable place for me. But anyway, the second one, because I feel like when talking about how the lifestyle can make you jaded, there seems to be a pretty good list of these. Stress, just general stress, I think would be a major player. I know is a major player in this puzzle with lifestyle stresses, like you said in the definition, not being able to find someone to play with or playing too much or just work, life, children, spouse, your polypod, whatever the case may be. All this can apply such pressures on you that you just have to take a break. What do you have to say about stress?
Honestly, I think stress is a major factor in why I'm experiencing burnout currently. The stress from my work, the stress from the podcast, which I love, but it is stressful for me. And I'm not going to deny that fact. Stress from my marriage. My husband and I are currently trying to conceive, so there's stress from that.
You're going to do it. You're going to do it.
We're going to do it so much that a baby will pop out. That's the plan. And then there's stress from friendships. There's just a lot, and it ends up being a lot on your plate. And when you look at it in one lump sum, it can really be overwhelming. And then you start going, well, what can I cut out to get a little bit off my plate right now so that I can balance this giant juggling act of life? And that's just a huge factor for everyone.
Yeah, and that's the number one thing that it tends to really burn me when I have to take breaks. And right now, as you and the cryptors know, with how I release episodes a little erratically, stress is a huge factor in my life with working anywhere from 100 to 120 hours a week with multiple jobs and trying to balance that. And the way things are, I spend Sundays where we'll record, and that'll take us a couple of hours with getting all the technical things set, and then, our conversations before and after, and then actually recording. And then the rest of the evening I spend with my wife. That's our dedicated day, but that's the only day that I have that's like that. And sometimes even that gets cut short because I'll have to go to work in the evenings. So that in itself creates a lot of stress. But I am, and this with all the conversations that we have, I've been working very diligently on trying to maintain a set schedule with publishing episodes and finding other gainful employment that will take some of this out. But it does lead to a whole lot of stress. And I think that's also why I'm so thankful for our producers that they stick with us and continue to support us, knowing that the publishing schedule is a little erratic, but they understand. And on that, I know usually I hit those at the end, but since we're talking about it, I'm going to go ahead and give them a shout out now. Our executive producers, Jeff, Jeremiah, and Silas. Our senior producers, Matt, Jeremy, and we've got a new one. It's Emerald Wolf. Our producers, Kane Sin, Danny, and Heather, and our junior producers, K2SO, who was our very first one, if I remember correctly, Irish Mountain Dragon, Fun Size's very own husband, and then a new one, Buffalo Dom 84. We are so grateful to you all for sticking with us and giving us that support that we need to keep the show going. So thank you so, so very much. All right. So run-ins with predators and fakes, and then stress. What is the next one?
Changes like a move, new job, and or beginning of a new relationship. So, of course, having a relationship end can be very mentally jarring and leave you feeling empty and exhausted. But new relationships can do this simply because of all the training and adjusting you may find yourself doing. Some people go into new relationships and they jump right into frenzy, but for others, it can be a very daunting thing. You spend so much time trying to find the right person for you, and then you find them, you just feel like maybe you don't have anything left to give because you put so much of yourself out there already. So that can actually lead you into burnout.
Yeah, that's definitely one that I have experienced a lot of. It doesn't matter how friendly a relationship ends. When it's over, it always makes me want to step away for a little bit and just regain composure. And that little bit may be a year or it may be a week. It varies depending on how I'm feeling at the time, but that is definitely one of the big ones for me, which I guess it's because it really gives me a feeling of the next bullet point on this topic, which would be feeling stagnant, because it's just, okay, well, here's a relationship. It lasted for X amount of months or years or whatever. And then, okay, everything seems to be the same. It starts, it's fun, it ends.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me feel like I'm spinning my wheels sometimes. And I know some people that I've talked to, I've said these types of things to them, and they always come back surprised. Well, you experience the same things that I experience. Yes, and Fun Size experiences the same things that you experience because we're all human.
Yes.
So what do you think about this whole stagnation, the feelings of being stagnant, or however you'd like to word it?
I think it's something that happens to all of us because our new relationship drugs wear off. And when that happens, we do get into this very relaxed state, but also a very sluggish state. You get ruts in relationships or jobs or any other position in your life. And you can feel like you're just not going anywhere. And you find yourself doing the same thing every day or for every scene, and you're wanting to push forward and change things up, but you just are sitting there. You don't have the energy to do it, and that's where the burnout really gets noticeable. And it just brings this extreme drop that leaves you exhausted with everything. Stagnation isn't a good thing to me. I'm always looking for new things to learn, new things to do, but it does happen. I've had it happen in past relationships. My husband and I talk about this maybe once every couple months. Oh, we're starting to get into a rut. Let's pick this up. Let's change this up. Let's find something new, some date night or something to shake this off so that we don't both end up burnt out.
Yeah, and I guess that's something that we haven't hit on yet, is just burnout, not just within the general scope of things, but in a very personalized way when it comes directly into the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That can be detrimental, obviously, to every relationship. So recognizing this, and you said something in this that's very, very potent with talking about this particular side of it. And that was these new relationship drugs wearing off, which comes to new relationship energy, or NRE. And if you want to dive more into that, our couple episodes ago, the episode on polyamory, which go to cauldronscript.com/141, and you can find out more about new relationship energy. Okay. So another quick recap on that. How can the lifestyle make you jaded? Run-ins with predators and fakes, stress, changes like moving, new jobs, ending or beginning of relationships, these type of things, feeling stagnant. What do we do when we notice this happening? I mean, I know what I usually do. The first thing is always, oh God, again? So I guess recognizing it would be the first step there. But after you realize that that's what's happening, where do you go from there?
I turn to my support system, which in the case of this burnout is actually your wonderful self and my husband, because you are the two people that are the closest that are going to be affected by this, simply because I am your quote unquote work wife with the podcast. You obviously get affected because you have to deal with my burnout of I need a week in between each episode just to write the show notes at this point because of the burnout. Just absolutely draining me. My husband has to deal with it, and me saying I want to take a step back from even looking for our third partner. I just want us time for a little while away from any scenes or play partners. So yeah, you just have to turn to your support system.
And then from there, I guess it goes to taking a break,
Mm-hmm.
which, there's quite a few things involved in that, but I guess it being very important to self-monitor and understand what you're going through instead of assuming that you're experiencing drop, which you are in a way, but burnout is such a much deeper thing than just drop. I know I've experienced Dom drop so intensely it caused a very lasting depression, but this is deeper even than that, and it's not. I can't class it as really that same type of depression. It's because that is often feelings of situational depression, and you realize that. But the funny thing to me about, or not funny, but I don't know how to explain it. The interesting thing to me about burnout is that it's such a broad stroke sadness and just being completely like sick and tired of being sick and tired type feeling.
For me, because I do have depression, and I know you can relate to this, and I think maybe perhaps several will get this. The difference between drop and burnout to me is that drop is the sadness. It might feel like it's this horrible thing, but it's only there for a moment, where burnout, like depression, creates this apathy towards the lifestyle, the way depression does towards most emotions and most of your interest, and just leaves you drained towards everything. So that's how I would compare it, is that drop would be sadness, whereas burnout would be actual depression with the depth that it runs. And to anyone that has depression and has experienced these things as well, I definitely would like to hear if you agree with this analogy, what your thoughts are on it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That would be a very interesting topic to dive into.
Yeah, somebody can start that thread on our FetLife group. Just do a search for Cauldron's Crypt, and you will find us. Love all the input that we get there in the conversation.
Oh, yes, they're absolutely wonderful.
So the next step, communication?
Always communication. You should always communicate with those closest to you that you are taking a break in the interest of self-care, and clearly define what you're stepping back from. This is something that I did in the case of the show currently. I said that I needed a week in between each show notes, but I wasn't leaving the show despite my burnout with everything. So that's where I defined where I needed to step back from. And I have an open line of communication with Master Cauldron if I need to step back further, but I have no intention of doing so anytime soon.
And that would be devastating. But if that is something that does need to take place, then of course, we're not even going to talk about that because it doesn't need to happen.
No, it doesn't need to happen, and then I'll communicate if I do need to step back further.
Yeah.
But I don't see that being a thing.
Yeah. I would like to announce, since we're talking about this with the every other week, and to me, it though, as I've already stated this episode, and as cryptors already know, with the erratic publishing of episodes, sometimes I get one out weekly, sometimes I have to skip a week because of editing, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to getting an episode out with some quality audio that doesn't have a bunch of ums and whatnots in it. But I'm going to start doing either interview shows on the weeks that Fun Size is taking her break. I will try to publish an interview episode or do a live show. And if I do a live show, that's where you really need to be on the FetLife group, because that's where the announcement for that will take place. Of course, I'll also throw it out there on Twitter and Facebook, but that's where the majority of our conversation is at. So again, if you're not part of that, just search Cauldron's Crypt in FetLife or just Cauldron and click on the groups tab after it pulls up your search results, and you'll find the group right there. There's going to be a mixture of some live episodes going on through YouTube Live and then some interviews. And Fun Size is going to do some of these interviews when she's feeling up to it. I'll do some of these interviews and pump those out to you just as quickly as I can. And again, thanks for your patience. So this communication, self-monitoring, I guess the last one would be just taking a break when you need it.
Yes, and it's important to recognize that taking a break doesn't mean that you're ending a relationship. It just means that you're doing what's necessary to keep the relationship going and make all aspects of your life better.
You know, when you say take a break in a relationship,
people panic. I'm just going to put it simply. People panic.
Well, I automatically go to Ross and Rachel on Friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We were on a break. Well, the problem there is that they didn't have enough communication to discuss what the terms of that break was. And yes, of course, I realize these are fictional characters, but still, that's why communication is so vital. Take a break and just make sure that everyone involved understands. And that's not to say that the people that you're taking a break from are not going to be saddened by it or not going to miss you. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be saddened by it or you're not going to miss them. It just means that you, one of the most used analogies when it comes to things like this is riding on an airplane. They tell you put your mask on first so you can help your loved ones or neighbors on the plane. Yeah, it's the same thing. You have to put your mask on first. You have to take care of yourself first so that later you can take care of others.
I would say that when it comes to this sort of thing in a committed relationship, of course, the communication's important. We always talk about that. But also, if you're experiencing stagnation, if you've looked within and that's the reason why you are feeling burnt out, talk to your partner specifically about that, because you can often use that as a platform to change the way you play. You can introduce new fantasies or even reintroduce old ones to create new experiences and break you out of your burnout. And that's something that I had to do back when I had my MS relationship, is I had to have a check-in with my master and talk to him and say, hey, I'm feeling a little burnt out on this. We keep doing this every scene, every week. What can we do? And he came up with the idea of introducing something new, and it worked. It brought me out of that stagnation period and that burnout, and I was able to pop back into the relationship with renewed zeal.
And that's one of the wonderful things about what we do, is that it's actually pretty easy for us to find that spark again.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to use a little bit of creativity. And it doesn't really take much, but it is funny that we often do just what the vanilla world does.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's Sunday, so we're going to go to dinner. We're going to have a few drinks. We're going to come home. I'm going to touch you like this. You're going to touch me like this, like that. And poof, we're going to have some fireworks. And then 7 minutes later, we're going to go our separate ways or sit here and watch TV and not talk and just fall into the slums of long-term relationships. It's so sad.
It is kind of sad, but I mean, you can do things to, as the vanilla people say, spice up your relationship, even when it is a DS or MS relationship. It's just that you get more colors of the rainbow and more spices to play with.
Exactly.
That's the way I've always seen it.
I love that. More colors of the rainbow, more spices to play with. That needs to be a t-shirt.
Let's get cracking on that.
Oh man. So you've experienced burnout, you've communicated effectively, you've taken your break, you're starting to feel better. Basically, you're finding yourself ready to jump back into the lifestyle. Anything special that needs to take place, in your opinion, with bouncing back in?
self-monitor because you're going to know when you're ready. Some people will actually get into a stagnant rut of just taking a break, and then 5 years later they're going, oh my God, where is this wonderful kinky side of me that used to exist? And it doesn't have to be that way because you will know when you are ready to step back in and end that break. And then the final thing is, and I know this has happened to me, I don't know if it's happened to you, but I'm sure you'll share it if it has. Be aware that coming back from a break can actually throw you into a frenzied state.
Some of the most intense and scariest states of frenzy that I've ever been was coming back from a break, and to the point of being dangerous. Because when I take a break, I take a break. I mean, you know this, you've experienced this with me before. And the 2 times I think in the past year that I've kind of had to just go, you know what, this is too much. I need a break. I have come back with such a vengeance and just vigorous, rigorous play. And I mean, it got crazy. And in that break, I'd actually met someone who was an extremely intense player, and that really took my frenzy and which just come from being so happy to be back and feeling so much better about life, but that just took it and amplified it, like took it up to 11. And that's something that you got to be really careful about. My wife, watching this take place, she's like, I'm glad you're feeling better, but you think you're going to like overdo it. And what happens, and I'm sure that you can attest to this, is what's going to happen when you do that, when you hit such a vigorous frenzy after coming back from a break, it's going to send you.
You end up doing something foolish.
Well, either that or it's going to push you into becoming burnout again even quicker, because you're going to hit it and then you're going to hit a drop as this, because it's almost like we talk about new relationship energy with other people, but with situations that happens as well. So that's often really one of the things that can create frenzy. We're experiencing this rush and these chemicals. So it's not just with people. It can be situationally based for an internalization of excitement and joy and all these things. So I think that's really something to watch, because you can end up, and I've done it myself. I've seen a lot of people do it where they get trapped in this cycle of frenzy when they enter, and then everything starts wearing off and it becomes almost passé, and they don't really communicate. They don't spark it up. And then it turns into drop. It leads to burnout. They take their break and then they come back when they're ready. And when they come back, they're so vigorous in play or whatever that it just repeats the cycle. So you gotta get in there and break the cycle at some point. I just think that's a big, big cautionary tale for this topic. What are I think it's something incredibly important, but doesn't take hours to discuss.
Yeah.
So I think that we've hit it. We've got in there. We talked about it. And we're going to jump on out of this. What are your final thoughts or anything else to add?
My final thoughts are not to be afraid of burnout. It's going to happen to everyone in the lifestyle at some point. And it doesn't mean the end of the lifestyle. It just means that you're taking a breath. You're taking a little vacation for yourself to heal whatever it is that you feel like needs healing inside yourself, or just to calm down and slow your heartbeat a little. And then just come back at a steady pace if you can. Of course, you're going to hit frenzy at some point, but it's important not to necessarily let every burnout be your frenzied state. So just recognize it, communicate, and let it happen. It's going to anyway, so just let it happen.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. That's definitely words of wisdom. Let our experience guide your way. All right. Well, since you pretty much said everything that I would say to wrap it up, let me thank a few people. Our executive producers, Jeff, Jeremiah, and Silas. Our senior producers, Matt, Jeremy, and Emerald Wolf. Our producers, Kane Sin, Danny, and Heather. and our junior producers, K2SO, Irish Mountain Dragon, and Buffalo Dom. We're so grateful for each and every one of you. If you'd like to become one of our show producers, go to our website, cauldronscrypt.com. You can find information there. Just click on the support tab. Second, BDSMcontracts.org. They donate some beautiful 25-page soft and hardbound MS and DS contracts. Go to BDSMcontracts.org. Use a coupon code Cauldron20, that's KULDRIN 20, to receive a 20% discount on all purchases. And finally, Whipping Stripes. And I have to give them a very special shout out today because I was driving around the other day and I get a text from Little Miss Whipping Stripes herself, and she says, "Hey, I heard you've been talking smack about me." And I knew immediately what she's talking about. I said, "Yep, I give you a plug on every episode." And she goes, "I'm in LA, and somebody just come up to me and said, 'Hey, I know you.'" And in this, I would also give a shout out to Master Gabriel out in LA. But Whipping Stripes, they're my personal maker of all things leather and paracord impact toys. I don't give a discount code for them. They're not an official sponsor of the show. I just absolutely love them to death. Their prices are too low and their quality's too high for discounts. So I don't even get a discount with them. But that's going to wrap up the shout outs. And then next week on the Crypt, we're going to dive into our personal evolution, how we can change over the years and how to manage this change. In the meantime, go to cauldronscrypt.com for show notes, how to subscribe information, and the link to our FetLife group so you can take place in the conversation over there and be eligible for giveaways. While you're there, click on the Support Us tab to become a Patreon supporter. All of our contact information, emails, Fet group, Facebook, the Twitters, the Instagrams, the Patreons, the PayPals can be found at cauldronscrypt.com. This has been Master Cauldron and Fun Size for cauldronscrypt.com. Unearth the truth.